So we start off with PubAd, definitions, components, and the actual distinction between public and private administration. Okay, this is where we stopped yesterday. Alva? Yes? So according to Sir Josiah Stamp, this person, the differences are clearly given in 4 principles that we discussed yesterday. That is principle of uniformity, external financial control, ministerial responsibility, and marginal return. So this means what? Common laws, right? So to whom? To public sector enterprises. Okay, so anything that is going to be government has common laws that are applicable to it. Okay, and the motive of the existence of the organization is single, that is people welfare or service delivery at the best possible way. So that is nothing but principle of uniformity. See, and again, I want you all to understand that it's so easy for us to get deviated from the topic. The moment you say principle of uniformity, what comes to your mind is, okay, both private and public applies the same laws. No, that's not what we are trying to discuss about here. When I say the distinction principles, it means that the public sector enterprises are going to have same kind of operating, procedures. That's what they are trying to refer here. Okay, now, and then that need not be the same in private sector, right or not? So each company has their own organizational structure and organizational policies. Terms and conditions of operations vary, alva, from one sector to the other sector in private, but it's not so in government. Okay, na? So basic, the groundwork is going to remain the same in all the public, sector enterprises. You get that? Yes. So moving ahead, external financial control. For the public sector enterprises, there is external financial control. That means when the government is going overboard, we are all so much, unhappy about, or say we are so much, skeptical about PM CARES funds. Why? Yeah, so the scrutiny is very important for us, where the funds are going, for what the funds are being allocated, and how the funds are going to be, put to proper efficient use, right? So there is external control. Tomorrow when they go for, this government goes for election, if this becomes a big scam, then we are going to be, replicating the opinion in our votes, right? So, and also the financial control per se is possible in the public sector enterprises, like how, so whatever the allocations is happening in the budget sessions, and then after the implementations they are put to audit again, right? So what kind of expenditure has happened, how much of planned expenditure has happened, how much of extra expenditure has happened, and how did you manage with the funds, and if the funds are being allocated with proper approvals, all those will be taken into considerations, right? And then if they are all fine, then you're let loose to continue the functions ahead. Otherwise, you're put to halt, right? So that's what it means by there is external financial control. In private sector enterprises, nobody cares. Until you go bankrupt, nobody's, and again, only when you are like a very big player, okay, only when you're a very big player, even the bankruptcy comes into the question. Right? Otherwise, nobody is there to financially control you. Okay, where your funds are being, invested, how much, efficiently are being utilizing this capital that you've invested. No, external financial control is not possible in private sector enterprises. Okay, got it. So it means that, it also shows the nature of the polity here. So government is socialist, whereas private players are capitalists. You get that? Yes, you invest, you reap benefit. Whereas here, you invest, you ensure that the delivery of the services is taken care of. Got it? Yes. And then ministerial responsibility. In public sector enterprises, there are ministers who are held responsible for implementation of the policies. So such kind of things are not found in private. But you can see parallel powers, but ministers are from the people themselves. Whereas, the managers or the, divisional or any heads that are there, in the private, they're all, directly nominated by the top level administration, but it is not chosen by the people. Okay. There is no idea of like, the organizational structure being designed by the employees themselves. There's nothing like that. The administration decides and that becomes the structure of the organization. That's the end of it, right? Yes. And then marginal return. So what is this principle of marginal return? Yesterday we discussed about it, right? So government expects minimum returns on like, whatever investment it makes, whereas the private concerns expect maximum returns, okay, from the investment that they make. So profit motive is the ulterior objective of private enterprises, whereas welfare motive is the ulterior objective of our public sector enterprises. So these are the striking differences. Anta, who says? So Josiah Stamp says, okay. And again, you have to be very specific about when you write these 4 points, okay na? So if you're able to remember this person's name, then you can write these. Otherwise, you can just give it as differences between public and private administration anta. Okay, so if you do not remember the name, don't mess up with the points. Got it? Yes. So, and again, one more thing is, itara questions kelala. What did this person say or what anta? But they would generally ask you a question like differences between public and private administration anta kelbodu. So immediately you have to plunge into the tabulation format. Okay, so features of difference. What is public administration? What is private administration? Anta, you have to go to that structure. So where will this become useful? Introduction. You can give it as an introduction or a conclusion. So that is also as good as your, body of the answer. Okay. So this can become a significant component for the person to pay attention to your answer. Okay, where everybody is starting off with the differences are, or somebody is writing like public administration means this, or private administration means that. But then, if you start off with something like this, it's going to be even more attractive. Got it? Yes. So moving ahead. See, these are like, small diagrams that you can utilize. Okay, now these look very simple. Okay, your answers also will carry pictures like this only. Okay, so public and private administration, so you can write them down. Like, activities involved here are like, households, clubs, corporation, private companies, or any entertainment industry, sports clubs, anything it could be. Whereas here, government organization. So it could be offices, judicial body, executive body, and legislative organ, anything it could be. Okay, so this is what? These are the 2 types of administration, and the activities or people involved in it are mentioned here. See, these are the differences. I'm sorry that, it's a little blur, but just, we'll quickly run through these. So when they ask you for the differences, the structure is something that we are going to follow, basic that we've discussed yesterday. So start with first one, meaning. What does it say? Public administration refers to orderly. So online guys, if it's not clear, I'm reading out, please write this down. So this is basis of comparison. This is public administration and this is private administration. So first one is the meaning. The meaning of PABAD is, we've discussed yesterday. So can somebody tell what's PABAD? Public administration for a desired objective. Simple, done. Okay, so that's what it means. Orderly managing of resources to achieve purposes established by the government. Okay, whereas private administration is operation, management, and organization of affairs of business enterprises. Okay, this is government enterprises and that is business enterprises. So meaning you have given. And then comes, what is it? What kind of a work it is? So public administration is a political process, whereas private administration is a economic or business activity. It is an economic or business activity. Why public administration is a political process? Yes, so implementation part, the executive, see in parliamentary, we have a parliamentary form of government. So one big advantage and disadvantage of a parliamentary form of government is the lawmakers are the executives as well, right? So ministers, right? So that's why it's called a political process. In public administration, people who are involved in implementing the policies are politicians. Okay, they are represented through a political party and they have a political backing. Therefore, it's a political process. Whereas your private enterprise, it is a business or economic activity. So what is this economic activity? It is purely on the lines of profits. Okay, so you invest and you undertake all the administrative developments mainly to run the show for the purpose of attaining the profit. Got it? Then third one is operation. So it operates in what kind of environment? Okay, here it is governmental setup and there it is non-governmental setup. So what is this difference? Operating environment, write it as, so what's this? Government setup and non-government setup. We know this, Allah. Obviously, if it's pub-ed, it's a governmental setup. This is a non-governmental setup. So what exactly they're trying to refer to? Yeah, so here mostly this setup is backed by a statute or a regulation or a law. Okay, na? So mostly the setups will be having a statute backing. Okay, if you take most of the enterprises, before the coming up of that particular public enterprise, we would have passed one legislation for the purpose of bringing that body, or we would have passed an executive order for the purpose of creating this body, and that regulation or law will give the clear structure of the organization. Okay, so therefore that is what it means by governmental setup. So you are going to have a well-defined structure which is going to be, not so flexible. Okay, whereas when it is telling non-governmental setup, it does not have any specified structure as such. Okay, now it can follow any structure that a private enterprise would want to. Got it? Yes. So then approach. What kind of an approach we follow in public administration? It is bureaucratic. In private, it is egalitarian. So what is bureaucratic? No, bureaucratic structure and the health. So what are we trying to say? Hierarchy means levels, yes. So they're related to bureaucracy, yes. But what exactly? So this is bureaucracy and this is egalitarian. So approach of the operation. So what are they trying to say through the word bureaucracy? Even more specific way we can say that, most significant functions are in the hands of bureaucracy. That is why governmental institutions are called as bureaucratic, structure or institutions, because bureaucracy decides. Why are we so much inspired to join the bureaucracy? Because there is power. Like we are going to be like, if we happen to clear the exams, we are going to be the policymakers tomorrow, right? So that bureaucracy is the one that decides everything in the governmental setup, okay, or in public administration. Got it? So bureaucracy or the top level officials have maximum say in policy making and decision making. But when it comes to private administration, it is egalitarian. What is egalitarian? So equality, we can say it as equality. Everybody has equal access and equal say in the organization. So do you mean to say that the CEO and the normal employee in a private organization are equal? Then say is heard. Okay, that's what it means by egalitarian. Now, in a private enterprise, if a common laborer is coming up with a suggestion, there are chances of that suggestion being taken up by the top level order. Okay, so that is possible. Okay, everybody's opinions are equally considered in a private enterprise. Okay, so that's why we have a lot of GDs and feedback mechanisms in the private enterprises. Constantly they keep on inquiring about your stability. How convinced are you about the work environment? How happy about are you about the work environment and about the pay? Everything else is taken to a very serious level, primarily because these says or opinions are considered of every level. It does not mean that there is one top level which are passing on the orders and the bottom level is accepting the orders. No, it's not like that. Everybody has equal say in the private enterprise or private setup. Okay, got it? At least there is some opportunity for it. But here, no opportunities. Okay, so bureaucracy and we are trying to change this. Okay, of late we are coming up with new public management. We are coming up with good governance. Everything primarily focuses on we should not be more bureaucratic. Andre, only the top officials should not have absolute power. Even the grassroots level officials should have say in planning process. That's what we are trying to do, from top down. I mean, from down to top approach, bottom up approach, right? So what basically we are trying to do, we are trying to go from the roots to the top level, right? So that's one difference between public administration and private administration. Then decision making is pluralistic and decision making is monopolistic. So this is exactly contradictory to the previous one. So what is pluralistic decision making? Okay, so in a public administrative setup, there is no single person who takes final decision, right? Maybe the representative name might be one, but then he has a whole lot of counter checks to abide by. Okay, even the Prime Minister should abide by Council of Ministers, right or not? So everybody, whoever is assumed to be the most powerful person under the Indian Constitution, even that person is also bound by the opinions of his structure. Got it? So that's what it means by pluralistic decision-making pattern. Okay, now what is this monopolistic decision-making pattern? If the owner or if the proprietor of the business would want to make a change, and if he is hell-bent on making that change, nobody can stop him from making that change. But here, can he do that? No, he needs support. Okay, so that's why we have this political party, that's why we have parliament, that's why we have two houses, and that's why we have people, right? So it's a whole lot of mechanism. If my opinions, if the Prime Minister's opinions are not matching with his party members, then that policy will immediately have to be given up because he's not going to have floor support, right? And then if his party is not with him, then obviously oppositions will have even more issues with it. So there is no one person's opinion coming up in the policy or in the major laws. It is plural. Okay, a group of people, the ruling party, or to be even more specific, this is about the government at the central topmost level. Okay, come to the normal organizational setup also. Normal organizational. Now let's say an office like BBMP, we have different players, right? We have different players, commissioners, mayors, a lot of people, parallelly operate in decision making, right? It's not that one single individual is responsible for deliberating the functions. So his decisions will have to be, balanced with the opinions of the others as well. And that's when it is not abided by, or when it is not supported by the parallel powers approval, that is when this conflicts rise, which we see a lot generally. These officers and commissioners of the corporations constantly come and tug of war, primarily because of that reason only. Parallel powers they won't abide by other person's opinions. Okay, so that's about pluralistic. So monopolistic is single individual or the single structure can decide about the decisions. Okay, then revenue generation through taxes, fees, duties. Here it is only profits. Okay, so what is the distinction here? No, the idea is this is like, a nominal thing that is being taken from the investment prior to the profits being, realized. Right or not? So now let's say government is coming up with a highway project. So in this highway project, after the construction, we are going to pay tolls. Isn't that a taxation? Yes, they're going to collect tolls and we are paying for the infrastructure that government is providing for us, right? So it is for the service being provided, they are taking a percentage of the money that is being invested. Okay, it is not based on the returns. Okay, so whatever the government realizes is a nominal charge on the investment that they are making. They are not the returns on the investment per se. Okay, and not everything will come under this bracket only. Doesn't government earn interest? It earns interest. We lend, right or not? We lend, we invest, we have shares. So all those we earn interest. So apart from that, we also get revenue through just nominal charge that we throw to the common public for providing some kind of service. Got it? Yes. Whereas here it is mainly return on investment. Whatever is being invested will have to be returned through the mode of profits minusing the cost. Okay, so that's the distinction between the revenue, way of revenue that is being generated. And one more thing that you have to understand here is these people, the revenue, whatever they are getting, the performance is not actually assessed here. You understand? Now, say for example, let's assume that this class. Okay, now let's make it more gross. Okay, so let's assume that this class is happening, and I ask you to pay 5 rupees even before you attend the class. Okay, let's assume simply. Okay, too small. Okay, 50 rupees. No, 500 rupees. Okay, one session. Okay, so let's assume it like that. Okay. Now, if I ask you to pay whatever, even before you assess or even before you feel what's happening in the class is beneficial or not beneficial, that is nothing but like, I am more credible. Okay. So without even questioning my credibility, you are bound to pay me. Okay. Whereas private players do not have that benefit of, credibility. Unless your investments are going to the actual business line and then they are making profits, there is no revenue. You get it? So you understand the credibility of the government player, public administration, and the credibility lag of the private players. So nowadays, private players are also as credible as government structures nowadays, right or not? So that's the difference here. Okay, you get it? Yes. Then accountability. So accountable to people, finally, ultimately accountable to public authority. Here, accountable to owners or the investors. Okay, then orientation, welfare orientation, and this is profit orientation. Got it? Yes. So please. Now let's take a look at similarities. This is not there in your copy. I want you to write down. Wait until we discuss off. Okay. So first listen and then we can write this down. So we've discussed the differences. Okay, now so you know what is the differences between public administration and private administration. So crisply, you should be able to write 10 to 15 differences between public administration and private administration. Now going on to the similarities. So first one is both rely on common skills, techniques, and procedures. So how? Okay, now we have our government run power plants, and also okay, let's take even more simpler example, garments. Okay, so let's take a textile industry. Okay, so private textile as well as the government run khadis, let's assume it like that. Okay, so now are they going to have common skills, the workers of both the industry, both the companies? Yes, common skills are required, and the procedures will have to remain the same. Okay, and the laws they abide to, they will also be same, right or not? So mostly the skills, the techniques and procedures in the same industry will be same, whether it is public administration or private administration. So these things will remain same. Okay, the skill set required to perform one particular duty and the procedures involved in attaining some desired objective, they are going to remain the same. Then principle of profit. See, actually, we are trying to disinvest, right or not? What is disinvestment? So we are shutting off the sick units of public sector enterprises. So primarily, those which are not making profit, we are going to close it down, right? So now, all those unprofitable ventures will be closed down by the public sector also. So profit motive is not just found in the private sector enterprises only. Even the public enterprises also in the 21st century are primarily focusing on profits. Okay, so profit motive is common to both. Correct? Yes. So you can write examples of Deepam, how this body is totally taking up the disinvestment. Okay, so could be our airlines that we disinvested, or could be our shares in different companies. Okay, so all those can be added here as examples. Then in personnel management, you don't call it as personnel. What is this personnel management? People management. Okay, so the people involved in the workforce. Okay, so in private organizations are influenced by the practices of public administration. So what good thing that public administration has given to private administration in personnel management? Railways, one classic example, right or not? So like if you take in 70s, 80s and all, railways were believed to be one of the, lucrative jobs. Largest creator, but not lucrative anymore, because, we have private players who are like, more vibrant and more stable nowadays, right? So back then it was very big, okay, and it was the largest employer, and then the security that it provided. Okay, so if you see the perks and privileges of railway employees, they were very good, right? They have this travel allowances, they have housing facilities. Yes, they have their own quarters, and then they have health facilities, and they have insurances, right? And a lot of retirement benefits as well, right? So there is job security, right? You're not just an employee, you're more of like a family. So personnel management is something that private enterprises learned from public administration. Okay, so now the same personnel management is taken to the next level by our private players, right or not? So what do? They come up with cab facilities, they have come up with food facilities, they come up with different cards. Okay, they take you for team dinners, team lunch, whatever. Okay, so that is like, both private and public administration are trying to keep their employees happy. Personnel management is like, that the privates learn from the public administration, and both are trying to do good at it. Okay, yes. And then the legal constraints are common to both. So don't you think that even private enterprises are subject to legal constraints as much as the public? Very much, yes. So government control like taxation, monetary and licensing policies are applicable for both. Okay. In fact, private has little more legal constraints compared to our public enterprises. Okay. So public enterprises establishing itself is little time consuming. Okay. With all this bureaucracy, delay, and also with, funds involved in it, capital crunch, with all that, the organization coming out itself is a big thing. And for private people, even if they come up, they are going to have legal constraints. So they are bound by taxation laws, they are bound by licensing regulations, they are bound by operational, they are bound by operational, guidelines. Okay, so all those things are legal constraints even to the private players. They are not free to operate freely. Okay, yes. Then similar type of hierarchy and management systems. Known thing? Yes. So like we see it in our public administration, we also have a hierarchy and a management system in the private administration as well. Okay. And in some of the organizations, it is so established that they have even more elaborate hierarchy than the governmental setup. Okay. So if you take your large private players now, okay, you should see their organizational structure. They are so organized. The coordination is so beautiful that, you will not see any gap of communication at all. They'll be so clearly coordinated from the top level to the bottom level. Okay. So hierarchy and management is mostly same in public as well as the private administration. In fact, we can see that public administration is a little lagging nowadays with respect to hierarchy, because, we have certain gray areas in the administration where we do not know who is going to do this particular function. Okay, so record sorting is something that we do not have in many of the organizations now. Okay, so officials involved in, in just, handling the records are the ones who have to sort the records also. Okay, so that is little gray. Okay, it is not the function of him. It's neither provided in the function of the lower level, official involved. So that is a lag. But in private, you generally do not see such lags. The roles are very clearly defined. Okay, but however, when we talk about similarity, we're talking about hierarchy and the management being similar structure. Then both undertake continuous efforts to improve their internal working and efficient delivery of services to people or customers. Obviously, service delivery is very important for private players also nowadays. Why? For government, there is a motive to serve the people. What is the motive of private? Profits and recurring customers. Okay, they want the customers to be their recurring customers. So word of mouth is a biggest marketing nowadays, right or not? So how you feel about the product and the word that spreads from you is most important for them. Okay, the image of the company, the brand of the company is very important. Okay, so therefore both take equal care in maintaining the efficiency of this the service, and then both serve the people. Okay, so without people there is no purpose of either public administration or private administration. Okay, both are existing to serve the public only.